is your Capital Connection.
Welcome to Capital Connection. I'm Mark Maxwell. If you pay attention to Illinois politics very long or very closely, you're probably familiar with the conservative think tank, the Illinois Policy Institute. Their CEO, John Tillman, along with a New York hedge fund, is right now suing the state of Illinois, trying to cancel out $14+ billion in debt, something that would have dramatic impact on the state's budget process, perhaps its credit rating, and a lot more. The Illinois Policy Institute's new president, Matt Paprocki, also has a new political action committee, this PAC, which accepts dark money contributions. We don't know who's the original donors are, and gives from that pool of PAC money to sitting lawmakers to try and influence and lobby them on matters important to the Illinois Policy Institute. It says it's fighting for taxpayers. Along the way, it's also trying to kill Governor Pritzker's progressive income tax that would raise taxes on 3% of the richest people in the state, at least at the start. So I went to the Conservative Policy Institute, the Illinois Policy Institute, earlier in the week, and I sat down with one of their top researchers to try to understand how they make their argument, why, and what they're after. How would you assess the pension problem?
Pension debt is the most severe public policy crisis facing Illinois. I believe that our pension crisis is the worst in the nation, and you measure that by ability to repay the debt. So when you just compare debt nominally, there are states that have more nominal debt than we do, but as a percentage of our revenue or compared to the size of our GDP, it's the worst in the nation. And that's a problem for taxpayers because it's the driving force behind rising property taxes and income tax hikes, but it's also a problem for retirees themselves, I believe, because I do believe these systems are at risk of insolvency, and we have actuarial analysis to back that up. And it's a problem for needy Illinois residents who rely on government services because our ability to invest in those services is currently being crowded out by this mammoth problem, as you put it.
Mm-hmm. The pension debt is growing. Why is that?
Well, the unfunded liability is growing because the payments, the legally required payments, are not actuarially sufficient. So they're not big enough to actually pay down the full size of the debt.
The state's not paying enough in.
Well, it's not that the state's not paying enough in. I wouldn't phrase it that way, and I want to be careful about how I put this, because we already spend the most in the nation, about double the national average, on pensions as a percentage of state and local revenues. So that's including both state and local. You can get that data from the National Association of State Retirement Administrators, for example. So we're paying the most. And we have the biggest debt problem.
Sorry, I want to make sure I'm specific. Most total or most per person?
As a percentage of our revenue. So when you add all revenue, you look at all revenues collected by Illinois state and local governments, and look at all pension payments made by state and local governments.
The biggest portion of the pie.
Biggest portion of the pie, exactly. And we're already a very high tax state. You know, it changes a little bit over time depending on tax changes. We just had an income tax hike in 2017. But however you look at it, total tax collections as a percentage of personal income, we're one of the highest in the nation. So if we're already a very high tax state and we're spending the most on pensions, to me that doesn't indicate that there's slack to put more in.
Couldn't that also indicate that state spending has already been cut and there's not a ton of room to cut in other places?
In fact, I would say that's largely the case. I don't want to say that there's no waste or inefficiency in state government, but there are a lot of programs that are being cut in order to make these pension payments. The research I did shows that from 2000 to today, to the most recent budget they passed, spending on pensions after adjusting for inflation is up by over 500%, 501% exactly. And spending on everything other than pensions, government worker health insurance, and education is actually down in real terms by 32%, so nearly a third. So we're seeing programs like the DCFS budget to protect at-risk children, MAP grants to assist poor students go to college, you know, the state police budget, all these sort of core government services are being crowded out by this ever-rising cost for the pension burden.
Okay, so the sky's falling, pensions are too big. What's the fix?
So I think that the only balanced fix and the way that we can best manage the interest of all the stakeholders in this issue is a constitutional amendment that allows us to change the future growth rate of pension benefits, but still protects every dollar earned by retirees and workers to date.
So future government workers or people that
so some people have said the important distinction is between existing workers and future workers. The debt burden is all with existing workers and retirees. So when we talk about that $134 billion according to the state, or $234 billion in debt according to Moody's Investor Services, that's all current workers and retirees. So the distinction for me isn't between existing hires and new hires, it's between the money they've already earned or their accrued benefits and the future growth rate of that benefit. So for example, if you're a current retiree and you're receiving $3,500 a month in your annual check, or your monthly check rather, that would be a very low pension, then that amount can never go down. But things like the cost of living adjustment would be open to change by the legislature, potentially by local officials, to make sure that we're bringing them in line with current economic reality.
What is the average pension, the annual pension for a public sector worker?
Well, it varies quite a bit from system to system. There's 5 state systems. You know, you might be talking about, again, depending on the system, something in the range of $60,000 for an average pension. But if you're a career worker, meaning you work 20, 30 years, those amounts go up a lot.
What do you think that number should be? If someone works their whole career in government, what should they make? What should their pension be?
I don't think that's the right way to frame the question. I don't think I or anybody can try to set an isolated value of what the ideal public pension should be. What we need to be looking at is whether the system itself is structured in a way that is sustainable and affordable and doesn't place too much of a burden on state finances. So right now, and this number I know from the data I recently pulled, across all 5 state systems, the average public worker contributes 4 to 7% of what they're expected to receive in lifetime benefits. There's no way to make that math work, especially when we have such low funding ratios, because in a healthy pension system, investment returns are a big portion that kind of, reduce the burden on employees and employers, because the return on investment accounts for about 62% of the annual revenue. The lower the funding ratio goes, the smaller your asset pool is, the less those investment returns can kind of carry the water for low employee and employer contributions. I've already said the employer contributions are actuarial insufficient, and the employee contributions are as well. They're too low to cover the size of their benefit.
I've talked to a lot of teachers in rural downstate who say, look, I paid my fair share, I paid my pension contribution, it was the state that didn't pay theirs.
That is a common talking point, but again, I don't think it really gets to the heart of the issue. If you were making payments that were insufficient payments to cover the size of the benefit, then that's not really, instructive, or doesn't really tell us much about the problem or what the solutions should be.
You're saying they were lied to.
I'm saying I don't blame a single government worker, I don't blame a single teacher in this state for the pension crisis. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the politicians who set up a system that's unsustainable, where the employer contributions, which in this case are taxpayer contributions, were too high that we ever would have been able to afford them, or that we ever will be able to afford them. So what we need to do is change the system, the benefits themselves, so that the payments we're making right now, which again are the highest in the nation, are sufficient to cover the size of their benefit.
Some people who are hearing you might think you're saying that it sounds almost like from 1970 until now, Illinois taxpayers weren't paying enough in taxes.
No, I think that's the point is we already have such a high tax burden, and we're already paying so much into the pension system. Again, one of the highest tax burdens, the highest pension payments as a percentage of our revenues. This says there's not room for us to pay in more, and we're actually paying too much. So the benefits have been set at a level that's too high for us to afford. The way I usually bring the benefit. The benefits are unsustainable. The benefit formula, meaning both the employee contributions and the employee benefit. If you wanted to have employee benefits like we currently have, there is a way to sustain those, and that would be to way jack up employee contributions. There's an analysis from Michael Semblist, who is an analyst for JP Morgan Bank, and he looked at, okay, what would it take to actually pay this debt down if you didn't do benefit reform? And there's 3 ways that you could do that: better investment returns, better taxpayer contributions, or better employee contributions. And in all 3 cases, given the place we are now, none of those is realistic. It would take 11.5% investment returns to cover it. It would take doubling the tax burden in Illinois to make $10 billion more in payments to the state system.
Governor Pritzker proposes this constitutional amendment. He wants to raise taxes on the rich so he can fill that pension gap and pay into that. Why is he wrong?
There's 2 reasons. The first is that the progressive income tax is bad on its own merits. It's going to harm the economy, lead to slower jobs growth, slower wage growth, and likely accelerate our worst-in-the-nation population loss.
Let me ask you about that. The federal government and 30-plus states have a progressive income tax, and all of those states have a better economy than Illinois. How do you make that case that a progressive income tax is bad for our economy when so many of those states have a better economy
if you cherry pick a single policy difference between states and try to compare them just on that, it can paint a very misleading picture. So what an economist would do is controlling for all factors. Are states with progressive income taxes better or worse than states without them? We have that data on our website. It's federal government data that anybody can pull down and verify. But what it shows is that jobs, wages, total economic output are all slower in states with progressive income taxes.
That also drives at the heart of the plight of middle-class America. You might have seen that Wall Street Journal article recently that showed how people in the middle class are going into further debt just to stay in the middle class, and they're borrowing money to do all that. Do you at least understand the governor's instinct to spare them and go after people who have more disposable income for this progressive tax?
Well, our opposition to the progressive income tax has nothing at all to do with defending rich people. It's about defending the middle class. It's about defending the overall, standard of living in the state. I agree that the tax burden on everybody in this state is too high. The biggest portion of that tax burden is the property tax burden. That's what's causing taxes on low-income and medium-income people to be too high. And the property tax burden is so high because of the local pension crisis. So I think that if we want to reduce taxes on everybody, but including lower income and middle income people, there's a way to do that without hiking taxes and harming the state's economy.
You can watch more of that interview up online if you care to. When we come back, a little bit more from the Illinois Policy Institute, how they're saying the state spends a lot of extra money on administrative costs in education, but why those numbers might not be entirely the full story. All that coming up.